I was asked to talk about a few things. I'm going to kind of recap on what I've been asked to talk about, and hopefully I'll do a good job. Let me know. I'm going to be here over lunch as well. So we've got quite a lot to pack in, so I might not be able to take any questions, but I will be around at the end. So Lydia and David contacted me and asked me to talk about my experience as an entrepreneur, discovering true passion, exploring different options, and also just seeing what's out there. Just to give you a bit of a flavour, so I'll be talking a little bit about NLP. I'm not a practitioner, or I'm not going to do any psychobabble or anything like that on you, but I'm just going to tell you the things that I've learned in my journey. I'm also a parent. I've got two kids who are 12 and 10 years old. I'm an uncle to kids that are now 25. I'm in my early 40s, so I kind of tried to relate to you guys, but I'm kind of 20 years out of date as well. The last time I was sitting on that side of the room, so some of my knowledge is a bit old. So let's see where we go. Okay, sorry, you're going to do slides for me? Brilliant, thank you. Right, so that's me. I'm going to give you a bit of background about yourself. So what I'm going to try and do is tell you my journey before I go into what Healthy Planet's about. And hopefully the first section will become clearer as to why I've told you all that stuff and how it's kind of built to where Healthy Planet is today. And the kind of themes that this is going to centre around is you guys trying to make decisions about the rest of your life and your career. It doesn't matter how old you are, things are going to change. So I was saying to one of you guys earlier on, are you guys mainly teenagers, like under 23 sort of age? Yeah. Within 20 years, most of you are probably going to be parents. And your mindset and what you do is going to change significantly during that time. So some of it will pertain to where you are now and where you're going to be later on. And every 7 years, you kind of change quite substantially in your thinking as well. So, underlying theme is don't worry too much. I know these decisions that you have to make are hard, and you've got debts to pay, whether you're going to take 6 months off before you get a job. Let's do the best that you can and don't worry about it. Things will work out for the best in due course. Okay, just one other thing. I was also asked to talk about entrepreneurship, which I mentioned earlier on. You guys are all entrepreneurs. Whether you go off and get a paid 9-to-5 job or not, you have to sell yourself to someone in terms of the time that you're giving them, and you need to convince them that you are the best candidate, whatever it is that you do. Or if you become a full-on entrepreneur, you're going to have to sell what it is that you do and what your passion is to everyone. So I'm not going to really distinguish that too much in this session. Okay, next slide. So backstory to me is I'm first generation Indian-born person in this country. My parents came over, very hippie picture there. My father came in 1960, my mother came over in 62, 2 years later. My father started off as a road sweeper in the Midlands. He then went up a notch and became a bus driver. And then he went up another notch and became a bus driver in London. And then he decided to do something on his own so that he could earn a little bit more money, because I am the last of 5 kids, 4 girls and then a boy, so I am the chosen one. So he went off and became a driving instructor. So I'm going to click on a few more slides and just tell you a bit more about that story. So there is a lot of stuff to take in. So they came over with the mindset of they come here with no cash, they have to support their parents back in India, and then they have to bring up the 5 of us as well. Now the original plan was to do that, work here for 10 years and head back. I'm still here 35 years after that date. So what comes with this sort of history and the baggage that we all have, we've all got some sort of emotional baggage along the way, is they forced me to go to Gujarati school. That is like, oh, I can't believe I'm having to do that and miss Thunderbirds, which was like a big thing on a Saturday morning. Bear in mind there's only 3 TV channels then, so it was worth watching. The other things, there was a lot of social functions, huge weddings where you didn't know anyone at all. That's part of the culture as well. And the other stuff was you had to go to temple or church, and I had to be involved in the family business, which was helping out in the driving schools. Now, back then, I used to think all of that was a bit of a pain in the arse, but now 20 years later, I can see all the stuff that I've picked up has been really, really good things along the way. So, talking to customers when I was like 10 years old, when they're coming in for the driving lesson, talking to them, writing notes down, was something that a lot of people don't have experience of. So wherever you get a chance, you're involved in a family business or you can get involved in a charity off your own back, please do that. The skills that you will pick up are huge and they will help you a lot. And it will help you figure out what makes you tick as well. Okay, now the one big thing that I learned from my dad was he took risks. I'm never going to do what he did in terms of up in country at the age of 21, 22 years old, and shifting to another part of the planet and going through the cultural shock that he had to do in the 60s. So he used to take risks. You know, going from Birmingham to London was a big deal back in the 60s. Getting married, having 5 kids is still a big deal, to be honest. So all those sorts of things, but I've learned that from him. So again, a little message for you guys is, you're going to be taking a lot of risks, you're going to be doing things that you're not totally sure about. Make an informed decision if you can, and talk to people that you trust before you make those decisions. Okay, next slide. So, this is where I grew up. It's in King Street in Hammersmith. This is a picture of Street View for Google Maps. It's a brilliant picture. It's not even one that we took, because that shop front's changed. So we moved in the mid-70s. We used to live upstairs. That was the driving school. It was reinvented as a travel agency when my father had a stroke, so he didn't want to do driving lessons anymore. So he became an office-based business. Now that then became the home of Healthy Planet. So because of the support that we had from family, we were able to start there rent-free as a charity and a social enterprise, and then grow from there. So again, if you can stick with your family, no matter how painful they are, there's normally some sort of benefit, that's all. Okay, just a quick test for you guys. Have you heard of, you guys know River Island, right? Now, when I was roughly your age, maybe about 10 years younger than that, they actually went through a major rebrand. So they were previously something called Chelsea Girl. Now, I don't think any of you guys are even going to remember that, but that was it was the equivalent of New Look. So it was much more down market, and they realised that with a name like Chelsea and Girl, they're not going to be able to cope. So they literally shut the doors completely on every single branch, and then 2 weeks later, River Island came out. Now they did it so well, that rebranding and reinventing themselves, that nobody actually knew that Chelsea Girl had closed down completely to become River Island. It was so fresh that sort of thinking that actually happened. So again, just little stories that will come up, will hopefully help you think about what it is that you want to do. Just going to quickly mention one other thing in terms of my personal experience and how this has led to where we are today. I've been involved in the travel business as a sideline for my family for probably about 15 years. That business is no longer there now. Again, tough decision, especially when it's your own family business. Well, we've come off the high street completely now. And anyone wants to hazard a guess why? Internet, number one, by far. So, how many of you guys have actually walked into a travel agency ever and booked anything? Quite a while ago. Okay, so it's the power of the internet. So things have shifted and they will continue to shift. So again, don't be afraid of change. So next slide, just to give you a quick history of my 20-year career. Yes, please bring that up. Right. I worked at Ernst Young for 10 years, so I did an economics and accounting degree. I went to university at 17, because back in those days you could skip a year at O-level, now GCSEs, and then start the whole thing a little bit early. So I was very, very immature. I went to university, and I'll tell you some stories about that. And I came out age 20 and a little bit, and I started at Ernst Young, and I did the usual chartered accountancy thing. So I stayed there for 10 years. Now for me, again, if you bear in mind the fact that I was brought up as the son of the first generation from India, and I'm also Indian by background, it makes me really, really tight financially. I don't spend any money at all. Even now, I'd come on the bus if I could have enough time to do it, but I actually came with you. So that's my background. So working at Ernst Young was a career choice because accountants are very, very careful. Financial people, they don't take risks. The other thing is, when I was 20, I didn't really know what I wanted to do for the next 30 years. So doing a chartered accountancy qualification was a good starting point, because you get to go in, look at other people's businesses, audit them, and get a good appreciation of what that is. And it's a good general management job. So that's why I chose that sort of line at the time. I stayed there for 10 years because I was enjoying it, and also I didn't want to take the risk of changing job. Again, kind of background to who I am. It's something that I've had to get over because I got made redundant. So how many of you guys actually remember September 11th? Yeah, properly. Okay. I was on a beach on a holiday in the USA when that happened, and I was sitting there thinking this could actually affect my job. And then I thought, nah, it can't be that big of a deal, because at that time I had only heard about it on the radio. Now, at the time I was working in a team that helps foreign companies set up in the UK. And as you can imagine, when that event happened, it just dried up overnight. And within 2 weeks, the entire team had been disbanded and 200 people had got made redundant from that one accountancy firm. Now, accountants, generally speaking, don't get made redundant. Again, it's a qualification, it's a job that it's a very steady thing. And so it was a bit of a shock to the system. So clicking on a little bit more, I'll come back to BNI in a second actually, I'll tell you more about that. Click on one more slide. Luckily, within 3 months I got a job at Flight Centre. So here's one little relevant story. This is 3 months after September 11. It's the travel industry. Any idea as to why you think I got a job at Flight Centre? Because I had the experience from the family business. It's the one thing that got picked up on my CV. It's like, oh, you've worked in the travel business before, even though you've come out of Ernst Young. So, as I say, what happens in your earlier life, it may not seem relevant at the time, but these threads will actually come through and actually dictate your future as well. That was probably the best job I ever had. I worked for a really good guy, Australian guy, 2.5 years. The first time we were big enough to be entered in the Sunday Times Best Employers competition, we came fourth. So we went straight in from nothing, skipped the first 96 places and went straight in at number 4. He was also voted that year as the best person in terms of leadership. We were the best organisation in terms of training, and we were really, really good. It was a great place to work. And there was a lot to be learned in terms of people management there. Next one. This is the worst place on the planet to work if you're an accountant. I did this role for about 6 months. It was a revolving door in terms of accountants. People used to go there thinking, I'm an accountant, I'm going to get paid a ridiculously good rate, the staff turnover is massive, no one's going to manage me whatsoever, I could do what I wanted to do. And that's basically why people went there. I didn't find out until about 3 weeks after being there what was going on. I was like, oh my God, this did my head in. And every single expense, even if it was £10 for toilet rolls, would be signed off by the Deputy Chief Executive of a multi-billion-pound business. It's like, what sort of decision-making is that? So as you can imagine, nothing really happened. It really was one of the worst places to work. So that is, I learned a lot about how not to run a business at COLT UK. Okay, next slide. What is now part of Sky used to be called Me TV. So when you go to a shopping centre and there's guys with, down the aisles trying to sell you stuff, and one of them's probably trying to sell you Virgin Media or Sky TV. Do you guys, know what I'm talking about? So about 5 or 6, probably 7 years ago when I was working for them, it used to be called Me TV, and they were selling Telewest, NTL, and Sky were the 3 contracts that they had. So again, retail background, shopping centres, that sort of stuff was really, really helpful. I did that for a year, and I got stitched up by my boss. So that's a separate story for lunchtime. You guys want to know about that, so be careful about what you're told as well when you work in smaller organisations. Okay, next slide. And this is the one where it all kind of ended for me, but in the nicest possible way. I was beginning to have my midlife crisis, because during all of this time, again, you'll see more about this, I had 2 kids, got married, and I was kind of getting to the stage where, you know what, I love being an accountant, I love helping businesses, won awards and all that sort of stuff as well, but there must be more to life than that. So I was sitting there, having done spread betting as well, for 6 months at home. Have any of you guys tried this sort of stuff? Spread betting, making a bit of money on the side of the internet? Okay. I was an accountant, a prize-winning accountant, so I was like, that must be easy. That's got to be a good way to do things. You can work from home, get up at 8 o'clock, sit in front of the computer, you don't have to go anywhere, and the money will come rolling in. So that was the theory. In practice, it was the worst thing I ever did. I lost about 4 grand in 6 months. And I used to wake up in the morning thinking, I don't really want to do this. And when you get to that stage at any point in your life, you know something needs to change. So it was that kind of, I got out of bed moment, I thought, you know what, I can't be doing this, looking at these graphs all day long. And then that will be reflected in the results that you achieve as well. So I did all that, and I was thinking about this concept called Healthy Planet. Now, again, coming back to me, my roots, my values, and my values is an important one which I'll come back to. I was a very, very risk-averse person, so I probably had about 75 grand to go on my mortgage, and I've got 2 young school kids who are probably going to end up going to private school, because that is the one thing I don't mind spending money on. And so I was sitting there thinking I could either take a traditional accountant's job and do all of that and I'd be happy, and pay off all of that sort of situation, or if I get a chance, I would love to do something that I'm really passionate about, but I'd be sitting there worrying about my mortgage and all the other stuff that comes with it. So out of the blue, luckily, a phone call comes from a recruitment agent saying there's this really good role at TESCO. It's probably going to last 6 to 12 months. It's in the commercial department. You'll be working for a chartered accountant, and that was his criteria of who he was looking for: someone with accountancy experience and the qualification. And TESCO was one of the people that was on my list on this master plan I had for how healthy plan's going to work. So I thought, great, earn a bit of money, pay off my mortgage in a year. I'll then be mentally free to be able to give healthy planning the best shot I can possibly have, and I'll talk to them about healthy planning. So that is the last job I had. So I walked out the door in, I think it was October 2007, and that's when I started focusing on healthy planning. But I was doing a lot of prep work during that time. Now, TESCO is an awesome organisation. So I'm going to tell you the one biggest thing that I learned from them, which hopefully will stand you in good stead, no matter where you go in terms of work. If you go into a meeting within TESCO, the criteria for having that meeting is one of 2 things. It's either got to help customers at the end of the day, or it's got to make the situation for staff better. So if it doesn't achieve any one of those 2 objectives, they literally cancel that meeting. So you have to stay completely focused on that. Now, coming from someone who grew up on custard cream biscuits and 3 TV channels, versus you guys are sitting there worrying about which mobile phone to get, what TV channel to watch, and the myriad of choices that you have in terms of travel, study, going to countries that proves to most people haven't even heard of for studies and all that kind of thing. I would ask you to try and stay focused. Just choose a path and go with it. Put your best into it once you've chosen it. Crack on, move on with that one. Okay? I know there's a lot of choice to be had, but again, get the input from people that you trust and choose one. So, next slide. Oh, sorry, actually, can we go back? I was going to quickly talk about BNI. What I would recommend for all of you guys to do is you're here studying. How many of you guys are working part-time, doing something as well? Okay, you can put your hands up properly. If you're working, great, be proud of it. Okay, so is this like bar staff or something that's relevant to what you are doing?
Something relevant.
Something relevant. Sorry, who was that? Okay, brilliant. Anyone else doing something relevant to what they're doing? 2, okay. Alright, if you can get a chance, do that. If you don't get that chance, then do something like join a networking group or join a charity where you can pick up good general skills that you wouldn't otherwise get until you're like 5 years into your proper job. So let me give you an example. BNI is a networking group. So they will let people into a group, and there's thousands of these groups around the country. So I used to go, even though I was a chartered accountant at Ernst Young, I used to get up at 6:30 in the morning and leave to go to a networking meeting every Friday morning at 7 o'clock as a travel agent for the family business. So I'd go there and I learned speaking skills. I learned just general networking. I learned about how the property industry works. Because in this room is one person from different professions. It's a travel agent, insurance broker, property builder, and so on and so on. And you will learn a lot about business and life in general from going to a group like that. Now, if you don't get a chance to do that because you're not attached to any business, don't worry. Get involved in a charity of some sort that interests you, because they're always crying out for people to take minutes of meetings. They're always looking for trustees, they're looking for fresh ideas, and they're looking for young blood. So you'll be putting something back into the community, and you'll pick up a lot of skills along the way. Sorry, next slide. So all of that, for me, led to healthy planning. So I'm going to tell you a couple of quick stories, and then we're going to go into healthy planning. So next slide. Okay, I'm going to recap on a couple of things, because I've had some questions from individuals already as well. The best thing I possibly did, by far, before I started healthy planning was clearing my head of baggage. So I'm going to read out some names of books, and give you a 1-minute version of the story as to why I thought these were relevant. And then I would really, really recommend that whatever baggage you have in your head, and you want to realise it, if you can clear it before you can make sure that you do what you really want to do. So, Any of you guys heard of The Journey by Brandon Bates? Okay, have a read. It's a lady that managed to cure herself of cancer just by changing her thinking. It sounds a bit out there, but if you bear in mind the fact that out of all medical operations, the success rate on average is 50%, which also happens to equal the placebo effect rate on operations as well. So if you go in with the right state of mind, you significantly increase the chances of sorting out your baggage. John DeMartini, again, if you look at some of the books that he's done, and here's a really good one for you guys. If you can work out what values you have, what's important to you, then you can find a job or a business opportunity that is there for that. And having the internet is probably the most powerful tool that you'll have in that experience. I'll tell you a couple of quick stories. One of them I heard from him. He goes around speaking at events like this, but on a grand scale, like 1,000 people turn up, that kind of thing, and they're paid to be there as well, so he's awesome. So he met a lady who was very happy in her day-paid job, administration clerk or something like that in California. However, what really rocked her boat was Spanish dancing. That was her thing. She loved it. She would do it every night. She even got so good that she'd be actually teaching other people as well. Now, with a bit of thinking, because she used to find working quite irritating in the sense that, okay, I'm doing it to pay the money and the bills, but what I really want to do is what I do after 6 o'clock in the evening, which is get involved in Spanish dancing. So with a bit of rethinking, what he managed to get them to see was that what if you could become like a travel agent who goes and takes groups of people who are interested in Spanish dancing, who live in California and all over the States, and you can take them to Spain once a month and take them on a tour and actually go to Spain and do dancing and be paid to do that. Now, having the internet and Google and all those sorts of things, you will find someone who is interested in something specific as that. And that's the opportunity that you guys have. And I've told my kids this as well, because they came home from school once. And what they told me was that they watched a video, and it says that out of all the jobs that are going to be around when they grow up, half of them don't even exist yet. So there's no way education can really prepare you for that, no matter what happens. When I was at university, so one of the people here about it, I used Lotus 123. Does anyone here even know what that is? Woo! Lotus 123. It's the precursor to Microsoft Excel spreadsheets. There was no internet, there was no mobile phones, there was no Microsoft Excel, there was Lotus 123. And it was amazing that you could take 2 numbers and add them up and it would appear in the 3rd cell. I was like, whoa! That was absolutely brilliant. So as I say, your education's great, but it's not going to prepare you for everything. Try and be as open-minded as you can. And read some of the books. It will help you figure out, once you've figured out who you are and what interests you, there is something that will rock your boat, no matter what age you're. Now, when I was 20, 21, I was sitting and talking to my dad, working out what job shall I do, what shall I study. I never thought that I'd be running a charity called Healthy Planet, and a lot of that was driven because of my kids. And so that's kind of the story that I'm going to lead up to now as well. Okay, another one's A Secret. This is a film worth watching. It's about 1.5 hours long. I'd go through the other 2 things first, and then if you're mentally in the right place, watch The Secret. It will blow your head, but it's definitely worth it. Anthony Robbins, Christopher Howard, the 2 guys, good coaches, NLP sort of stuff. They've got some quite intense courses. Some of them are free, and some of them are like a nominal fee, like £80 for 3 or 4 days, and you turn up in somewhere like the Excel Stadium, along with a few thousand people. But it will help you in many ways you possibly want. One of my favourite stories, and this is kind of just shows how powerful it is in terms of where you come from. So I've told my story. Her story is quite unique. And I think this is one of the videos on TED as well, by the way. I think she speaks at one of the university graduation days. And she basically said that she was always worried about finances. I think she's got a daughter, 1 child as well. And her big thing was just looking after them. So even before she started putting pen to paper on the books, she ended up so poor that she ended up in social housing. And she was always worried about that. You know, prior to getting there, she was always worried about making the money work and looking after a child. But when she hit that, what she called rock bottom, she realised it wasn't as bad as it was in her head. So she thought it was going to be terrible, end of the world, suicide sort of situation. But what she said was, actually, you know what? The government is helping me, they're looking after me. I've got nothing else to lose now. And it actually put her onto a new path in terms of her thinking. She said, you know, the fears in my head were worse than the reality of it all. And that's what kind of inspired her and kicked her off in terms of like just putting pen to paper, what's the worst that can happen? Getting a few hundred rejection letters from people who probably regret it now. That's basically what happened. So that's kind of one of my favourite stories. Family support. Please, you guys are at that age, I've got nephews and nieces that you already okay. Your parents are there for what they believe is the right thing for you. They may get it wrong, but they also bear in mind that half of their genes has come from your mum, half has come from your dad, and they've been observing you all their life, and they've got 20, 30 years more experience than you have. So they will try and do the right thing by you, but then also be stuck in the mindset of Lotus 1, 2, 3 as opposed to the internet. So bear with them, but do take on their suggestions. And the same goes for your friends and family as well. But never turn the family support away. You've got it, you should enjoy that. Okay, next slide. Right, we're going to get on to some slightly lighter stuff now. So this is the Healthy Planet story, and this is my midlife crisis. So this is all about me. So my two kids, about 5 or 6 years ago, that's how old they were, that's what they looked like. They're now 12 and 10, and quite irritating, but they're still my kids, I can't trade them in. And that's my wife. She still looks like that after 17 years actually, and I've aged quite a lot, so I'm not sure who's come out better out of that relationship, but there we go. And it's Mother's Day, so you guys have got me in a lot of trouble. When I booked in for this, I did not know it was Mother's Day, and I got quite a bit of a beating this morning, so thank you for that. Much appreciated. Okay, my family is my #1 value. I know that because I've been through the John D. Martini experience. I know what's important to me. I make no bones about that, and I don't feel bad about it. It's when you guys try and take on the values of other people, thinking that that's also should be your values or things that you care about, that's when things will go wrong for you. You know, figure out who you are. If you can absorb the principles of other people, the good ones that work for you, great. If you can't, put them aside, but don't worry about them. Okay? It really is as simple as that. I don't have any deep understanding or knowledge of Syria, Palestine, what the hell's going on out there. No disrespect to that situation, but I can't take that on. I've got those two kids to worry about, and I've got Healthy Planet to worry about. That's my thing. Okay? You know, if I happen to help Syria, Palestine, and all those guys somewhere along the way, great. But my focus is all about my family, my community, and Healthy Planet. That's it. If you can get to that stage in your head, your life will be way better. You will then have a good knock-on effect on other things that you possibly won't even realise. Okay. Right. Great. So this is the backstory to Healthy Planet. I'll be done. Two things happened. You guys remember this tornado landed in Kilburn? Were any of you guys around London at that time? And one landed in Birmingham the following week. Do you remember that? Okay. I live in Hammersmith, it's 5 miles away from Kilburn, and I come out of my house and I think, shit, this is just really screwed up. I'm trying to bring up my kids, it's hard enough as it is, and then something like this comes along and it takes out 4 houses and half a school, just like that. So no matter how sceptical you are about climate change, something's not quite right when a tornado lands in a built-up city like London. This is not Oklahoma, I'm sorry. You know, it's just like, this is not normal for us. So that's #1 that made me think, you know, someone's got to do something about this. But I can't fix the world's problems by myself. So, thought we came up with this concept of Healthy Planet. The other event that kind of got me thinking was, this report came out saying that our kids, my kids, are on track to lead a shorter life than their parents for the first time since records began 150 years ago. It's going backwards. Again, as a parent, that's not acceptable to me, and something needs to be done about it. So everything that we do revolves around, next slide please, our personal health, the health of our children, and the health of the planet. That's why we came up with that logo. So whether you see that as mind, body, the world around you, whether it's you, your family, and the world around you, it doesn't matter. The two are all connected. So that's how Healthy Planet started. Next slide. Great. So, in a nutshell, that's what we do and the reason why we do it. We can get 60 million people all doing something small in their everyday lives that they feel good about as opposed to feeling guilty about the world's going around in this airport driving the car. And that's what we like to do. Okay? As I say, the mind-blowing stuff. This is where the social enterprise bit comes into it. Do not be afraid of doing something different. You can ask the questions. There is a business reason why things are done the way they are at the moment, but it doesn't make it the only answer. It may make it the right answer, but not always the only. Here's an example. We give out books for free. We've done this 2.5 million times now in 2.5 years. We give them out for free, but other people have tried to sell them and they've not been successful. So, give me an example. How many of you guys would go into a second-hand charity bookshop and buy a book? Yep, great. How many of you actually bought a book from there? Great, so you've done that. Now, if a charity shop cannot sell a book within 2 weeks, they don't want it. It's in the way, it's taking up stock room, they're not interested, they will get rid of it. So it will either get pulped at best, or it will get landfilled, depending on what local authority and what charity you're dealing with. For example, Oxfam never sell hardback fiction. So when you take all their books to them, they'll pick them out and they won't even put the hardback fiction on the shelf. It's too much hard work, there's not enough profit in it for them. That's their focus, that's what rocks their boat. Okay? We will take books like that, like the Guinness Book of Records 2009, and we'll give them out for free. So who would take a copy of that? It's a good read. I'm not asking you for any money, but it's a good read. Yeah? So we take books like that and we give them out for free. You're probably wondering, how much money does that make? Hands? Anyone think of that? It's a good question. So you've got to keep business minded even if you're running a charity and a social enterprise. We have a store in Basildon that's doing that, that's bringing in £400 a week in donations because people either feel bad about taking something on for charity or they just think the concept is so totally awesome that they love it. It's bringing in £400 a week. We don't even have to send books there anymore because people bring in books that we then give out again. It's worked so well. Now, the other kicker on that, and I'll explain more about money in a second, will come through. Stuff for free is the big brother to books for free. It's a bit like Free Cycle, but in an empty shop, basically. If you've got clutter at home, or when you leave university, for example, I think you're from the States, I'm sure you bought a hairdryer here, because you're one from the States, will probably blow up if you try to use it, because we've got some American students at our place as well. But when you go back, you will probably leave that hairdryer here. Yeah. There you go. So who wants a hairdryer? Speak to her at the end of this term. She'll probably give it to you. But that's kind of what we think. All these things are going into landfill for all the silly reasons, really. We just need to get these things resolved and looked at in a different way. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here's some Healthy Planet projects, and I'm going to explain to you about the money. Because as an accountant, I made sure that we make money on this, because it needs to be able to A, feed my kids, and break even. Because there isn't going to be grants, foundation money available forever. The begging bowl charity model does not work. It will for a bit, but it's not going to stand past the test of time. Okay, books for free, I've just covered that off. Stuff for free, I've also just spoken about. Healthy lifestyles. So what we're trying to do is we've just taken a floor in an empty office in Croydon. Very, very nice landlord. He's got an unlet floor out of about 20. It's about 1,000 people work in that building, including the Amex call centre, Mitsubishi Electric's head office, and so on and so on. And what we've taken is taken that floor, he's given it to us rent-free, and we've said we're now running yoga and Pilates classes at lunchtime. So if you're working, you can come down, and it's £5 for half an hour's worth of yoga in the building, heavily subsidised, because there's no rent, it's charitable, and we just want people to enjoy it. It's full, because people get stressed, and they want a bit of release, or they just know messaging's kind of getting out there. You've got to try and be a bit healthier. So we're doing things like that as well. So that's what Healthy Lifestyle is about. How many of you guys, honestly, turn off the tap when you brush your teeth? You know, like when you're switching on and off. That's not bad. It's not bad. Okay, students generally are better at that than people of my age group. And I'll go to the gym, the guy just leaves the tap on. And it's like it's a virgin gym, it's paying £70 a month. So I said, mate, I've heard this before. I said to him, do you want to turn the tap on? And he goes, look, he laughed at me and he said, well, I've paid for it. That was his thing. I said, you're absolutely right, you're paying for it. I don't know whether you got that or not, but that's the sort of thing. There's enough drinking water for a family of 4 for an entire day if one person turns off the tap when they're brushing their teeth. That's quite powerful messaging. It's very simple, it's things that you can do. That's the sort of stuff that we like doing in Healthy Lifestyles. Healthy schools, same sort of thing. We're just trying to reach more communities. If we can get people when they're young, you know, we're talking about in this room could be a future Prime Minister, a future head of GSK, etc., etc. So that's the sort of stuff that we're looking for. If we can get them young, they'll get the thinking right, and they won't screw up the things that we screw up. Sorry about that. Okay, next one. Conservation community. I'll show you a little bit about that in a few minutes. Very quick video. And finally, healthy business. Again, I'll come on to that in a second. I'll show you two more slides very, very quickly. There's a hotel near here called My Hotels. They've worked with us. They said to us, we want to create a CSR policy, corporate social responsibility. Their biggest asset, guess what their biggest asset is? And again, I need you guys to think about who you are and what your assets are differently. This is not just about what is your potential income. Their biggest asset is their hotel room. It's not actually the amount of money they charge, it's the room itself. People will come in, they will stay there for several hours, and then go again. So they wanted to have a green policy telling the people in there about what they do. So things like, they've worked with us and we created a little, the do not disturb signs on your hotel room door. One of those has got the turn off the tap message on it, but in a very nice positive way. As opposed to turn off the tap, it's very much along the lines of, did you know if you did this, it's enough drinking water for a family of 4. So that's the kind of thing, and that's their CSR policy, and we've just helped them do that. Same sort of thing, there's a healthy online product that you can buy from a company called Body Me, and they're going to donate 50p for every time they sell anything. So that's really generous. So you've got to work with people, basically. You can't live your life alone. You don't really want to do that. It's no fun. Next slide. Okay, this is the money. So, there's something called business rates here in this country. Every commercial premises pays business rates. It is, in essence, a property tax. If you're a landlord, what do you want to do? You want to be a landlord. You want rent to come in for the thing that you've invested money in a long, long time ago. If that unit is empty, A, you're missing out on the rent, and secondly, you have to pay this property tax called business rates. So we go to landlords, including Land Securities, biggest listed landlord in the country, Sainsbury's, Blacks, Barclays, Prudential, AXA, and those sorts of guys, and we say to them, you have a choice. You can either work on your own, or you work in partnership with us in relation to this empty property. If you're on your own, next slide, you're going to pay 100% of your empty business rates. So there's a Waterstones near here, isn't there? Yeah. The rates on that is probably like £50,000, £60,000 a year. That's not even the rent. That's what they have to pay the government just to be there. £1,000 a week. They have to sell a lot of books to make that place work. So if the landlord of that has to pay 100 grand a year, let's say, if a unit of that sort of size or double the size was empty, he'd be bleeding cash. And bear in mind, the pensions that you guys are going to put money into over the years are probably with companies like AXA. Or, as a charity, we get an 80% discount. So your 100 grand bill here becomes our £20,000 bill here. Now, the number you guys amongst you can see where this is heading. But this has been around, it's different, it's been around for 6 or 7 years. We're the first guys that made this work. So we said to the landlord, if you give us 50 grand a year, and you can pay in monthly instalments, and you can stop this whenever you want when you manage to relet it, all the things that are important to him, who's actually better off? Both of us. He's better off by 50 grand a year, and we're better off by 30 grand that goes towards things like books for free and stuff for free. So we get to do what we want to do as a charity, and he's walked away with quite a bit of cash as well. But with all the important stuff about he can kick us out whenever he wants to. So we've done this 300 times in 3 years. We've got a shop in Tottenham Park, Upminster, Shepherd's Bush, Bromley. I'm just naming some names in case you guys live near them. But you might have seen our books for free centres dotted around London. Okay. This is how we made this work. We make our own money. We've never had any grant funding. Now, so I'm saying here, telling you this story because I get paid to do what I want to do to look after my kids. It's awesome. You guys can do that. You can create income from anything, just like that Spanish dancer lady in California. It's the most random story that I could remember in terms of how you can make money. So bear in mind, anything in theory is possible. And there is a social angle to all of this. Okay, next slide. I'm going to skip this actually, because I know I'm kind of running over a little bit. But if you guys want to see that, conservationcommunity.org is another way of how we make money, but by giving you the best, greenest gift on earth, as Stephen Fry described. I'll leave you at that. Next slide. Okay, one last story, because you guys are at uni. the very first idea we had was this conservation community thing. And the idea is that you can adopt a plot of land and put your name, picture, and message on it through Google satellite images. So, how many of you guys have done something like adopt a goat or any of those sorts of kind of ethical gifts before? We've all done it. It's a classic student present, and you guys are our target one. So, can you imagine this? You can put your name, picture, and message on a Google plot, and you can email it to your mum in Australia or wherever she is. And 90% of that money will go to that conservation project. Is that pretty good? Yeah, it's quite a good gift. It's probably the most efficient charity gift you can imagine. Because all the other ones, they just put it into a general plot, which probably goes on head office. But this one, the money goes to that conservation project. Now, we set that up as a charity, and we need to know about conservation projects and know which ones are good and which ones are bad. I don't know any of that sort of stuff. I'm just an accountant from West London. But I used to live with a guy at Bristol University 20 years ago. That's not a 20-year-old picture of the whole. And he is a big heavyweight geography brain at King's College. So he speaks on behalf of the UN's environment team. He's got us listed as one of the top 60 conservation initiatives to watch in the world over the next 60 years. He knows his stuff. And I met him at uni. So you guys, the fact that you're here networking is awesome. And you guys need to do more and more of that. The first time I met him, as I said, I was a very, very immature 17-year-old. It was the first day in halls, like even before the course got started. I walked into the kind of common room and I said, "Which one of you bastards want to play snooker with me?" So that was my opening comment, and he said yes. So, and like 20 years on, we're now the best of friends, he's got kids, and we're working together at Healthy Planet, and we've made a big difference as well. So, well done for being here, basically. Last slide. I'm going to skip that one, but that was basically the idea behind how conservation works. So, Mark was basically telling me that he's collecting rainfall data on a kilometre by kilometre basis in Brazil. Now, that doesn't rock my boat as an accountant at all. But when he showed me this technology 5 years ago, I thought, hold on, I've got a bit of a retail background, why don't we make a gift idea out of that? And he doesn't care about businesses at all. The only things he cares about, 2 kids, his wife, and the planet. Everything else is not important to him. His basic theory in life is, if you're a human being, get off my planet. There's too many of us on this planet. He's a very simple philosophy, man. So, but with this, his geography brain power, my retail background, again, so hopefully you can see all the threads coming through. You know, whatever experiences that you have or have had, they will be useful to you in some way, as long as you keep them in the back of your mind. That's it. Help the planet, be a part of it if you can. If you can't, don't worry about it. It's fine.